Thanks everyone for coming. As Dr. Jacobs introduced me already, my name is Audrey Smith, and I'm the Civic Scholars Program Coordinator this year. So I'm a research assistant or fellow with the Bob Graham Center for Public Service. And I'm also a doctoral candidate in the Department of Geography, but my background actually, interestingly, is public health and anthropology. So talk about a wide variety of disciplines, which is sort of the future for research, I like to think, but I think it is. So people from different backgrounds and different specialties, interests, and expertise at any level is perfect for this program. So this is the overview of what we'll be talking about in this presentation, just basically to let you know what Civic Scholars is, although Dr. Jacobs did a great job of the background overview of the program. And then the benefits of being a Civic Scholar, the benefits to you all as undergraduate students, some new aspects of the Civic Scholars program this year, and a brief overview of the research topic that we're sort of thinking of that we've, now there'll be some discussion during the semester, but I'm going to give you the overview of the topic that we've come up with, key dates and deadlines, and then we'll have two former Civic Scholars students from the spring 2022 cohort, Evan Smith and you do as well. Okay, great. We're going to have three. We'll introduce them. So that's great. So they'll talk to you about their experience, and you can also, when we get to the question and answers segment, you can ask me, of course, but them as well about their experience and what they, what they thought they gained, what they liked. Feel free to ask anything. It's an introductory level opportunity for all undergraduate University of Florida students, meaning you don't need any prior experience. You'll learn the basics of research design, what empirical research is, different research methods and approaches, including qualitative and quantitative approaches, and ways to analyze data, and also ways to collect data and different types of data. And then your data and your research will be disseminated on the BAROMETer Florida, which is a interactive data visualization tool on the Bob Graham Center website. I'll talk more about that later. And then at the end of the semester, it's scheduled for April 15th, there'll be a research symposium. So you'll get the opportunity to do a short research presentation about the research you did and the findings you had. It's a great experience that personally, I really wish I'd had an undergraduate, because going into graduate school without that experience was challenging for me. So the benefits of being a Civic Scholar. Well, money never hurts. There's a $500 scholarship for every student who does participate in the program, meets the requirements. The requirements being enrolling in the 3 credit hour course, coming to class, the lectures, which we're working on the collaborative research project. We'll be spending a lot of time in class. There'll be guest faculty lectures, but we'll also be working hands-on during class meetings as a group. And I'll be working right there with you. Other experiences or benefits are learning some really cool data visualization and analysis tools, as well as just these basic research methods and introductory concepts, as I mentioned. And you'll gain that experience presenting scientific research, which will help you in any field in the future, just for public speaking even. And then it's quite a good resume builder for jobs and for graduate school applications. So what do Civic Scholars research? In previous years, they have researched anything from social determinants of public health issues, climate and community, income and poverty, sexual health, education, voting rights, and different aspects of mental health. So for the spring 2023 course, it's a 4,000 level course at 3 credit hours. And this is a departmentally controlled course, meaning you won't register for it on your own when registration comes. If you apply to the program, you're accepted, then we, the Bob Graham Center for Public Service, will enroll you in the course. So, if you are going to do the program and you start to panic, I don't see it, I can't register, that's because it's departmentally controlled. So just keep that in mind. So I'll be leading the course, but we're going to have faculty guest lecturers from a variety of fields across campus, who are the real experts in research and research methods and on certain topics. And this will be, as I mentioned, a collaborative research project. Different students can work on different aspects of the project based on their individual interests, skills, or skills that they'd like to build more, but it's a collaborative project that we'll be doing together. So no one will be sent out on their own, to go do this research project, which frankly, even at the graduate level, you're not, you have advisors, you have people helping along the way. And the course is scheduled to meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Tuesdays periods 8 and 9, and Thursdays period 9. And then lastly, we'll have that research symposium sponsored by the Bob Graham Center and here in Pugh Hall on April 15th, which would be a great fun opportunity to present research and also a social event. So what we've kind of landed on for spring, and this is still open for some discussion, and we like to take all the input from the Civic Scholars once you're in the program, is we're gonna look at aspects of AI, artificial intelligence. And this doesn't mean at all that you need to know anything about AI or frankly have any literacy about it at all, and certainly not skills to apply it. In my research, I guess I realized recently I can say that I do some AI because I use machine learning techniques in analyzing data, but I really just recently realized that that's actually AI. So, but really we're going to be looking at AI in terms of, first we'll introduce you to the concepts, and you can share your own experiences or ideas about it, how you think it fits in your fields or interests, and then we'll talk about its ubiquity in society, in our daily lives, and across disciplines and fields and research objectives. And then we'll also talk about the ethical concerns and potential biases that AI can bring to the table. And then we'll design this collaborative research project together, looking at some aspect of AI in society, and potentially looking at how it can be used to help develop solutions to key social issues, particularly with focus on the state of Florida. So for the spring program, I envision us combining qualitative and quantitative research. Qualitative is often designing surveys and collecting data from individuals like public opinion or demographic data. We might conduct group interviews, focus groups, and then quantitative, because we'll be producing the data that we gather. We'll produce some just very descriptive statistics, and then we'll also do some basic analysis of this data that we can then publish on the Barometer Florida data visualization tool on the Bob Graham Center website that I mentioned earlier. And of course, the research symposium. So just a quick, you might want to go to the website and really look at this, but this is the Barometer Florida is we call it like an iCivics tool. And basically, it's a very user-friendly, interactive data visualization website or app of sorts. And so what the past Civic Scholars have done is they've gathered data and analyzed it that contributes to Barometer Florida. And then the Civic Scholar Program Coordinator helps process this data. Like, for instance, for the geography student, I work with a lot of spatial data. So I do geographic information science, GIS, maybe you've heard of it. That's actually pretty ubiquitous in many fields as well, not just geography. So, I help publish this data on Barometer Florida. And it'll be a really fun experience to see how we do this. So the point, the Civic Scholars themselves will gather this data on these critical issues that will contribute to Barometer Florida to be published. The Barometer Florida itself sort of has the goal of getting the public more of a general literacy about public issues and critical challenges facing Florida and beyond, and to get the public more engaged in events and aware. And this is a user-friendly tool to see up-to-date data, key issues, and indicators, and gauge progress locally and more broadly throughout the state. So key dates for the program. Well, today was one, so thanks for making it today. We might, I'll be open plenty of times for anyone to come talk to me anytime about the program for further insight or more questions after today. But the application deadline is coming up. It's October 16th, and you can find it on the Bob Graham Center website if you go to Civic Scholars. It's a pretty short application. It's nothing too laborious, so don't worry about that. And the notifications of acceptance, the status of your application, will go out on October 24th. So we'll quickly let you know, but before registration opens, although keep in mind this course you'll be registered through the Bob Graham Center. And then the first day of class, well, classes for spring semester begin January 9th. We're meeting on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so we'll start on January 10th, and the first day will be like an orientation to the program and introduction to each other and the research topic. And then April 15th, we've already scheduled the research symposium in the spring, where we'll have a mini conference of sorts and present our research together. People will do individual presentations. We can also have our group findings, etc. So if you would like to apply, you can also just scan this QR code right now, which will take you to the webpage for the Civic Scholars program. And then you can access the application through there and also read more about the program. There's also a link for Barometer Florida and look at some work that previous Civic Scholars have done. They've created things like story maps. I don't know if anyone's heard of that. It's a geographic information system. It's really, you don't have to know GIS. You can create these story maps, which are like a multimedia report, basically, where you present data, but you also have a written aspect. Those are really cool. I can also share more of that with you all later. And also, you might want to visit the Bob Graham Center website to just learn more about other opportunities. There's lots of opportunities for undergraduates as far as internships, research opportunities, fund programs, always looking for volunteers, I think. And there's also undergraduate assistance for the center every semester. So here's my contact information, and it's also on the website. And I'm also located right here in the Bob Graham Center, room 236. So also feel free to stop by. I am sometimes over in geography, but I'll have set hours in the spring for sure, and hours on the calendar here. So now I'm luckily enough, some former Civic Scholars have volunteered to speak a little bit about their experience.
Oh, great. Hello. Say hello to everyone at home.
I honestly signed up for this yesterday, so I don't really have much prepared, but I guess I'll just give a little spiel about it. So I'm a fourth year. I did this last year in my junior year, but there were people of all years in it, freshmen, sophomore, juniors, and seniors. So definitely don't feel like you're too young or too old to apply. It's like a great opportunity, no matter what age you are, what major you are. I'm an econ poli-sci double major. So my project was based on studying student debt. So looking at how student debt affects different groups of students more or less, and seeing coming up with solutions based on all of those factors and what we can do going forward. It was a really great experience overall. One of my favorite things that I've done at UF. I got involved with the program because I wanted to do junior fellows, which is a different research program that's through the poli-sci department, but that didn't work out. So one of my professors recommended I apply for this. It was a really great experience. There's a tons of different avenues you can go down. You can basically create whatever variables you want from scratch. If you're interested in literally, there were 10 different topics up there. So whatever you're interested in. I was interested in student debt because it's a very big economic issue, and that was a lot of what I've studied through my major. But it could be anything from voting rights, sexual health, geography. People did stuff about all sorts of things. So there's lots of different opportunities. Don't think that if you're some major that you don't qualify for it, or you it's geared towards a specific group. It's for everyone. It's a really great experience. You'll meet a lot of really smart people. Class itself was very enjoyable. I went from having zero research experience whatsoever to being able to fully present my own research in front of a huge group and talk about it front to back, the research methods, everything from picking out the variables, the survey questions, and I came out of it with my very own research project, which I'm very proud of. I love talking about it. So if you guys have any questions about it, about the research project itself, the class, definitely was not a high stress thing at all. It takes a lot of work to do the project, but it wasn't the class I was super worried about or super anxious about. I loved every moment I spent in the class. I look forward to it every week, getting to work on the project, learning more about the Civic Scholars program and the Bob Graham Center itself. Overall, 10 out of 10 experience. Yeah.
It's so much fun to me.
That's it.
I think a big takeaway there for me was that you learned from going from zero to
absolutely.
to 10 to 100 about how to do research.
Yeah, I had zero
From
research
beginning to
experience.
end,
I guess I'll get back to the camera. Hello, I'm sorry. I had, like I said, zero research experience whatsoever. I just knew that I wanted to try it out, try my hand at it. I'm not going to do it again, unfortunately, because I'm graduating this semester, but I wish I could, kind of. I don't know if I would do it again, because it's definitely you do it once and then it opens up opportunities to other research experience.
That's a good point too. You can go on to other more.
Right, if you wanted to
research
continue and
details.
make it turn into a senior thesis or an honors thesis, there's definitely an opportunity for that. So it's a great starting point. Like I said, if you have had zero research experience at all, it's a great way to start off. And like I said, they'll walk you. I had Dr. McCarthy, and she's not here, but I trust that it will be similar to where.
We'll have other faculty.
Yeah, it'll be similar to where you can go from having zero research experience whatsoever to have your very own project at the end of it. So again, 10 out of 10. Good thumbs up.
Thanks so much.
5 stars.
Yep. Hi, everyone. My name's Evan. I am a third year here at UF. I'm studying political science and history, and I was also a Civic Scholar last spring. I did research on satisfaction with democracy. So I looked at whether Trump supporters or Biden voters and Republicans and Democrats are more likely or less likely to be satisfied with democracy. And so I did that research, and not only was I able to, do all the research and like he talked about, like the literature review and data and stuff, but we actually, what I liked about the program most is that we did a unique survey. So basically, instead, we're usually researching your other classes, or at least in my experience, it's just looking at past research and sort of, putting it together to fit your project. It's actually a unique public opinion survey. So you get to ask the questions that you want on this big survey that's sent out to like hundreds of students. Do you remember what the total was?
It was, we were like 200 and.
Yeah, over 200 students. So you get a wide variety
It was a lot more.
of data. Yeah.
Sorry,
I think it was like 1,000.
I was gonna say I was a part of the program last year, but I was
It was
looking
like,
at the
I
survey.
think it was like 1,000.
1,000? Okay, yeah. Somewhere between 200 and 1,000. A lot of students from a wide variety of backgrounds. So what I really like about it is that you get to form your own questions and sort of do the research that you're most interested in. And also, like, it's really not daunting, as he was talking about. You don't have to know what a literature review is. You don't know how to do fancy data analysis. You just come to the class, show up, do topics that you're passionate about, apply yourself, and you can really succeed in the program. And then another thing that I really, really liked was the research symposium at the end of the year, because you're treated like a professional. You dressed up fancy, you presented your research to an audience of your peers, family, faculty, things like that. So it was actually a really, really good experience, especially if you aren't familiar with research. That is completely okay. In fact, I would say it's encouraged more than anything, because it's a really good way to get your foot in the door.
That's great. Thanks so much.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that was actually the date of the symposium. Last year, it was a little bit interesting because we were trying to figure out how the Civic Scholars program was actually going to function. And that kind of set back the date with which we could send out the survey a little bit. It put it a little bit behind. And the result was that we only had partial results when the research symposium occurred. So you guys will actually have the benefit of not having to go through that process, and you guys should have fully formed research proposals by that point. This guy also actually stole my thunder because he had his research at the same time as mine, and he presented it, and he's a pretty popular guy. So not a lot of most people went to his actually at that one point. But anyhow, I thought it's a very good program. One thing that's nobody's really touched on yet is that one of the things you actually have to go through is you get registered with the Institutional Review Board of Florida, of the University of Florida, IRB. And it basically means that you're set up for future research for, I think, until 2024. Yeah. So basically, you don't have to go through that process of training and certification, because when you do research that involves survey participants, there's a level of ethics you need to go through. And that requires training that this coursework basically puts you through. And that opens you up to future research opportunities because you're already registered with the IRB of the University of Florida. So it's super useful. My research was actually on also satisfaction with democracy, but I looked at it from an economic perspective. I was doing it on the basis of parental income and looking for whether parental income was affecting satisfaction with democracy among University of Florida students. And it was a pretty good experience to basically involve myself with methods that I had learned in other classes, but I've never actually gotten the chance to apply. So it's a very good, if right now you're in a class where there's a little bit of like data analysis or qualitative work that class teaches you about, but it doesn't necessarily give you the room to apply. This is a really, really good place to actually figure out the method to apply that and to figure out what kind of research you really enjoy. Because it's so broad, you're allowed to choose what sorts of topics you like and you want to pursue and that interest you. And then you can also figure out what ways to look at those topics. So whether to look at that from a qualitative perspective and do a lot of survey work, whether to do that from a quantitative perspective, and actually take the survey results and analyze them using statistical methods, use a mix of either. It's a really good experience to actually figure out what sort of research you like. And unlike many people have said already, it's a very, very good opportunity as a springboard. It was actually what got me into the junior fellows for the political science department and the European Center for European Studies both I'm taking right now, which are both super, super cool experiences that I was actually able to get into probably mostly because of this program, because by the end of it, I had come out with like a presentable paper that I could put on LinkedIn, I could submit on a resume. And it was a thing that professors really like to see, because when you apply to these programs, they basically need to have some sort of assurance that you know what you're doing. And this is one of the best ways you can prove to a professor that you want to do research with that you are actually qualified to do so. And so it's a really good opportunity to, if you like research, if you think you might like research, try it. You're going to get $500. It's not a hard class to get through. It's not incredibly intensive in terms of the stress it kind of lumps on you, even though it is a little bit of work. But it's a very, very good way to figure out whether you like research, what type of research you like. And if you like that research, then you can use this as a point to kind of go forward and bring that forward with like whatever sort of research you want to do in the future. So yeah.
Before we get to questions, I just wanted to touch on a couple of things that they covered, and it was really, I think, useful information. The IRB, the Internal Review Board, this is something, when you talk about training, it's just online training through the university. It's a process you have to do if you're doing any original research and collecting data, particularly if you want to publish that. So for the spring program, it really depends on what we're doing, but it's not like sitting through hours of training. You do like an online, I don't know if you've done any other trainings through UF, but it's like just an online thing, and then you take a little test, and then you're qualified for the IRB. And we'd be submitting that if we need that. Like I've had to do that for research that I do, where I do surveys, disseminate surveys I work in African communities, for example. And anytime you collect data and you're going to use this data, you and publish it, because it's an ethical, partly for ethical reasons. You know, make sure that the people that you're collecting data from, you're not going to abuse them or that data. Anyway, also as far as the research topic, so last year they designed a survey in class, and everyone was able to come up with their own questions, and those questions were worked upon as a group with input from the instructor. And then the questions were put into a collective survey. Now we haven't decided, we're going to decide on that as a group in the spring. And so we will have an overarching research topic. So it's not like everyone will be doing something completely different, but we'll have an overarching research topic. Like one year it was social determinants of health. So let's say, I mean, you like you would do something related to that, but you can go down an avenue that you're interested in. And then when we're working on the group aspects of it, if you're more interested in the data analysis part or the visualization, you can focus more on one of those aspects. So it will be a collaborative group research project, which is also good because it takes a little pressure off everyone. You will have the opportunity to explore your own interests and skills that you want to build while contributing to a group project as well. So what about any questions you can ask the former Civic Scholars and of course myself? Yeah.
With the data visualization parts of the project, what software technologies were used in the past to create the reports most frequently?
It's called ArcGIS. So
Yeah,
there's like data maps. So if yours was like based on location, you use like a map, and there were ones that were like, yeah, you could just basically make like a story. It's called like a storyboard or something like that. You can like
Story map. So ArcGIS is a type of software for geographic information systems, which is GIS. GIS involves data, people, computers, and you can do data analysis and data visualization. ArcGIS is one software for GIS, and the university has a license to it. There's also free non-proprietary softwares like QGIS or GIS, but that's typically to do data visualization. Now, GIS, you can also do tons of analyses in there as well. I use it a lot for my research. Not just for creating the maps, but actually to analyze the data. So that's typically what we'd be using. And the story maps is an aspect of ArcGIS software where you don't have to be that well adversed or at all really with GIS, but it kind of walks you through how to use actual spatial data, because the one thing about geographic information systems, GIS, is you need spatial data. And you can attach all kinds of ancillary data to spatial data. So that's typically what we're doing, is combine a bunch of different data types into a data visualization. So, and the story maps is a really cool program that's part of ArcGIS. That you can basically, you create this report, you're making a whole story out of it. It's multimedia. So you have maps, pictures, interactive maps, and also a whole story like a report.
What if AI isn't something that interests them? Is it still a program for them?
I would say so, because one, we're not 100% set on that topic. Second, I was thinking about AI in terms of, so it's not like we'll be necessarily using AI. We might be looking at, the how AI can actually sometimes reinforce biases or exclusion rather than inclusion and diversity, which is, with these machine learning techniques, for instance, they're based on information, right? But where does that information come from? We can actually reinforce biases and biased data and outcomes. So there's things like looking at it in terms of how can it be used to help solve societal problems like public health issues, epidemics and pandemics, as far as data, because we're in a world of big data and AI is already a part of our everyday life. So without actually using AI, we can examine research questions about it, like how does it, what's the general public's idea of AI, or what's the general literacy, if they have any, about AI, just in a survey of different questions like that, or how can it be used for good in solving problems that face Florida and more broadly, such as environmental disasters, hurricane preparedness, social health problems, socioeconomic inequalities, etc.
Yeah, I have something to add about the data visualization.
Oh, great.
So you don't have to have any coding experience going into this class. But if you want to do some data visualizations, you mentioned the storyboard, you're also allowed to do like your own data analysis. So if you have programming experience like Adam did, he used R, which is a common program. I use this like really easy to use program called Jump, which is basically like Excel, and you can make these like nice graphs and stuff. So what I really like about the program is not only can you do the story maps at the end of the semester, where you put it into basically like a big website essentially where you put different parts on it, but you also can do data analysis your own way. And you're going to talk about in class different ways to do that. But you don't have to have any coding or programming experience. But if you want to do data visualization and that kind of stuff, those opportunities will be available.
Thanks, Evan. Yeah, that's great. 1 second, let me just touch on that. Yeah, when I think of data visualization, because I'm a geographer, I'm thinking of a lot of maps and things like this, but data visualization is also charts and graphs, which you can use Excel. I use R as well, our programming language. You can do introductory R stuff or other programs. So it's really open. As far as interactive maps, definitely maps in R, but we'll probably use some GIS. No, not everyone has to do that at all, but yes.
I have a question for the former participants.
Yeah.
Any way you guys can answer it. You guys mentioned all the good that comes with it, but like, what were the hardest parts about enrolling in the class or like being in?
For me, I would say the hardest part was the literature review. That's basically like, you got to read like, it was like 10 or so papers about like related to your topic. And it got a little bit tedious at a point. It's a lot of reading to go in like literature review. It kind of forms the basis of what your project is going to be on. So it's like, how to draw conclusions when you get the data itself, and like what to expect when you get the data. So that if you're not a big reader, that can be a little hard. I said that was the hardest part, was writing the literature review, but past that, it's like, it was very rewarding. But that was definitely the most tedious part, was just reading a lot of papers related to your topic to write your literature review.
The class is kind of late in the day. It's Tuesdays, it's 3 to 5 p.m. and Thursdays it's 4 to 5 p.m. And sometimes that can be, especially with a lot of other classes, that can mean like a 2 or 3 hour break, which isn't the most, it doesn't slot very well into certain schedules unless you get lucky and you're able to slot it in very well with other things. But besides that, the other side of it is that it is a very, like, in terms of actually the grade you receive, I'm not sure if there's going to be a change, but last semester was a very low stress experience in that as long as you were able to submit every single assignment, you got an A. So it was realistically like not that bad in terms of like the class itself. So pros and cons.
Probably the hardest part, or like the weirdest part to get used to, was that I think I wanted to jump in like day one, like put that survey out and get the results back. But research is like so much more than that. You have to look at the past, what everyone else has done, formulate the questions really specifically, looking at past questions that are related to that. For example, like my question from satisfaction with democracy was directly plucked from a Pew Research. So you have to take a step back and like go at it a little slower. As he was saying, doing the literature review, looking at past research, making sure you're analyzing the right things, that your variables work out. And so for me, I wanted to jump right into it, but research is a lot more broad than that. So that was my main like negative, for example.
That's part of research design, just come up with questions out of nowhere. You kind of have to think about, why am I asking these questions? Am I asking the right questions? What information am I trying to get for, to what end? And then what's the best approach? And so that's part of what we learn in research design and methods as an introductory level.
So they all talk about like they're doing their own projects, but then we also talk about like doing the AI project as a whole. So how is this, is there like a split between you working on two different projects, one as a group and one on your
I
own?
think theirs was a little bit unique in the spring because they designed a survey and everyone came up with their own questions. And the survey overarchingly was about like public opinion of many different things. But at the University of Florida students between a certain age group, undergrad, I guess I don't really restrict to that, but and with the goal of also getting broad social demographic, which was also I think challenging. But so that was a kind of a unique project. If you go to the website, some of these other topics that I talked about in the
I
past.
saw the one about social determinants.
So there was an overarching project about that. Now, the students could still come up with like different questions relative to that they thought were important and different areas to focus on within that overarching research topic. So I think that ours will be a little more cohesive it's definitely a group collaborative project. However, that said, within that topic, and we'll discuss, right at the beginning of the semester as a group, what people are interested in and even vote on different topics within an overarching topic that we do as a group. So there will not be individual research projects per se, but you might do different aspects of the overarching topic where then you'll report on your aspect of it.
Okay.
And it'll all contribute to the collaborative project. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Oh yeah, I have something. So on the point of collaboration that you were talking about, like the paper that you write and the research that you present is your own. You're doing your own literature review, you're doing your own data analysis. But at least in our course, you're connected with people with similar topics with you. For example, if you're discussing the relationship between AI and health, for example, you're going to be put in a group of people doing similar projects to you, so that you can bounce ideas off of each other and figure out, what are the overlapping parts and where should we separate. So you're not doing a group project versus an individual project, but you'll be presenting with people on similar topics for you. So like, as social determinants of health, for example, you would have a group on health, a group on education, a group on whatever. And so you're bouncing ideas off of each other, but at the end of the day, the research is individual.
And it's also really quite helpful in terms of coming up with ideas. And if you feel like your idea is only like partially there, but you think there are parts that are missing, there are probably going to be like 5 or 6 other people in the class who at least somewhat similarly have like overlapping themes that you can talk with and maybe think about an additional variable that helps make your paper come together more cohesively, or some sort of like change to like how you're looking at it, maybe swapping the causal link. And so it's kind of like very useful in that way for people who haven't done research before to kind of get that collaborative experience, no matter how independent you want to work with it.
A lot of my experience in graduate school is that research is very collaborative. Now I've gone out and done field work by myself. I've done, many hours by myself looking at analyzing data and things like that. But you're also, when you work on it, publish a paper, I'm publishing it with other people and they contribute, which is helpful because going with ideas. So there's a lot of opportunity to do a bit of your own individual report at the end, and then also work as in smaller groups with them. I'm glad you mentioned that because for this topic, for instance, again, we'll guide that more the first couple of weeks of class where people want to go with it. And if there's different groups of people who are more interested in, say, like a health topic or environmental protection or natural disaster, these different, you can sort of segue into in smaller groups within larger groups to work.
How many Civic Scholars were selected?
Somewhere around the neighborhood of 50. And I just want to emphasize, it really is intended for students without any research experience. So if you already have, a decent amount of research experience, this is probably not the right program for you. It's really for introductory. There's the Ask You Scholars, which in the high school where some civic scholars who've done the Civic Scholar program then move on to do that, which is also great opportunities. But it's usually around 50, give or take, and depending on how many people apply, of course. But last year there was 53, I think.
If we want 53 or however many persons, they all meet at the same time, like during the class periods, hopefully it's not too different.
Yeah. When the program first began, I think it was very informal. There wasn't a class, an organized actual formal class for credit, but an experience that I was told that it made it very difficult to really get things sort of together and have people, work on things together and actually, meet. And then, so last year and I think the year before, they both had class meetings, and that seemed to really work quite well. Some of those class meetings will be, there'll be some guest faculty lectures, and I'll be lecturing just a little bit on just basic research, and then we'll really be hands-on working on stuff. And so some of the class meetings might be, you really working on the data when we're at that point, and then so we can help each other, and I can answer questions and help. And then there might be a class meeting or two where it's really individual time to work. So I envision being rather flexible too.
Is that time period you mentioned for the classes set in stone for next semester?
It is.
It is.
Right, it is. Because it's just here, yes, I learned that process a little bit. It's quite difficult. So you think of all the different departments and classes and instructors and classrooms to sort of organize class times and space and all that. So this has been set.
The upside to that, though, I don't know if this is going to change, but the upside to that is that even though it's late in the day, you never have to go in thinking like, oh my gosh, there's a test in this class, or oh my gosh, like I really need to have like this or that. Like anything that's due is going to most likely be due on like a Friday at like 11:59 p.m. Even if it's later in the day, it's not going to be something where you have to like be preparing throughout the day for that like end of the day. We had last year basically like a month and a half between like when we were told, like when we were really supposed to have like our idea kind of down, and when like the literature review, which was really the biggest part of the project, needed to be done. And again, that really is only 10 article requirement and like 600 words. So it's in a month and a half. I think that's like maybe like an hour commitment a week. It's not bad.
In fact, I don't think that really there won't be exams. It's more about deliverables, steps in this research process. Maybe in the argue some papers that are relative to your topic or the topic that you want to look at, and then some research questions. There'll be just deliverables throughout the semester.